Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perticchese, and thank you for joining me as always. Week 13 of the college football season in the books. Week 12 of the NFL season concluded 2 nights ago. Here at Saturday Sunday, we will break down everything that happened from this past weekend of college football. Also, we will take a look ahead to what might make up your round one of Dynasty Rookie Drafts after the following 2026 NFL Draft. If you were joining us a few moments ago on YouTube, I was having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I started it up again. Here we are. First off, happy Thanksgiving to all the listeners of Saturday to Sunday. I hope you enjoyed the next couple days. Should be some great football. Hopefully spending time with friends and family and eating some good food as well. Thank you all for always listening to the Saturday to Sunday podcast. So from our group to all of you, happy Thanksgiving. Let's get right into it and let's talk with the NFL draft report for this past week. Not a lot to discuss, which is why I want to take up my first look at what could make up your rookie draft for your dynasty leagues after the 2026 NFL draft. But a couple things from this past week that stood out at the quarterback position. Every time Dante Moore plays, it starts to become a little bit more possible that I think people are maybe underestimating that he might end up coming out into the NFL draft because he could be a top 5 or top 10 pick. This past week, 22 of 30, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns. But in this draft class, when you look at, we have Fernando Mendoza, who I think is locked in the first couple picks in the draft. I like Ty Simpson. I'm not all in on Ty Simpson. I think if Dante Moore comes out, he will go above Ty Simpson in the 2026 NFL draft. I think if Lenoris Sellers comes out because he's so toolsy, I think he might go before Ty Simpson in the 2026 NFL draft. But Moore looked good again this week, continues week in and week out. I think it's going to be very hard for Dante Moore to not declare following this season, following where I think his draft stock and draft capital would be. So I'm still starting to think that I think we have a real chance at him kind of being in the mix here with Fernando Mendoza and most likely Ty Simpson as well. But we'll see how the things shake out the rest of this season. Also, I think another hot topic, and we've been talking about him all year, but I believe it was today on Twitter, I think it was Nate Tice, who I respect Nate Tice and his opinions tremendously. He came out with a tweet that talked about if Arch Manning was to declare for the 2026 NFL draft, he thinks he'd be the first pick in the draft. Listen, that's where this whole year started. If you go back to last summer, everybody thought if Arch Manning played up to his expectations and declared, he would have been the first pick in the 2026 NFL draft. Obviously, the season got off to a very rough start for Arch Manning. And I think some of that probably was expected. But we have seen growth and development. And I've been on this wagon the whole year that I don't care how much of an up and down roller coaster it's been. Arch Manning has the pedigree. He has the tools. He has the physical tools. I think most people look at it as of him having the mental makeup, all that goes with being a Manning. He could handle the spotlight. He could handle the pressure. I don't think he's coming out, but I've been on record most of the podcast this year saying that if he came out, he still would have been a first-round pick. Just like I think Lenoris Sellers will be, even though he's had an up and down year because of the tools. Arch Manning not only has the physical traits and the physical tools, he's also got the pedigree. He's also got the name to it. There's no way that quarterback needy teams, especially when owners get involved, because they always do when it comes to quarterbacks, there's absolutely no way Arch Manning would not be a top 10 pick if he declared. I don't think he's going to declare. He doesn't feel the pressure with the NIL stuff. And take that at most people don't feel the pressure anymore to declare with NIL. But I'm just saying, if for some reason he did declare, he would, I do agree with Nate Tice. Would he go above it for Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore? I'm not sure. I'm not ready to say that. I think it's possible, but I do think he'd be a top 10 pick. I do think he'd be possibly a top 5 pick because teams would be betting on the traits and the talent that he still possesses. This past week, he looked really good against Arkansas, 389 yards, 4 touchdowns. It has been a building for him this year. So I think Arch is a guy that, yeah, I think he's going to be the headliner of the 2027 NFL draft. But I do think that if he was to declare, he'd be right in the mix at the top of the 26 draft as well. Over at the running back position, Notre Dame just rolled this past week. Jeremiah Love had 8 carries for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. We are starting to get to the territory of, is he a better prospect than Ashton Genty? And I think it's going to be really close. I haven't made my final determination, but I think it's going to be that it's very possible that Saquon Barkley was the highest. I think the highest I've ever evaluated would be Bijan second and then Genty third. I'm not sure I'm going to put Jeremiah Love over Saquon or Bijan, but I do think I'm going to have him over Ashton Genty in terms of he's doing it against better competition. I think there's more big playability in Jeremiah Love. But that's how highly regarded of a prospect is his running mate there in the backfield, Jadarian Price, who I've been talking about the last couple of weeks. I think it's a real possibility he could be RB2 in this class if he declares. He had four carries for 70 yards, so he had some big plays this week as well. Also, Kaytron Allen has really separated himself in terms of production from Nicholas Singleton over the last X amount of weeks. This past week, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Listen, I still think when Kaytron Allen, when we try to transition him to what he could be on the Sunday game, I still think he is a interior, 2-down, plotting, physical running back. Short yardage, goal line, early downs, power running. That's who Kaytron Allen is. I think he'll be drafted somewhere between rounds 4 and rounds 5, most likely, and he'll be a part of a committee at the next level, but it could be a productive aspect of it if you're looking for that power, physical interior back somewhere in round 4 through round 6 of the 2026 NFL draft. We're talking wide receivers. The USC guys were at it again. Mekhi Lemon, 7 catches, 34 yards, but found the end zone twice. His running mate there, Jacoby Lane, 6 catches, 108 yards. I think Lemon's going top 15. I think Jacoby Lane has now put himself in the mix to probably come off the board somewhere on day 2. I know some people love him, have him a late round 1. I think he's more of a day 2 guy, probably more round 3 for me. I used to have some concerns about his ability to separate at the next level. Kenyon Sadiq, who's going to be the first tight end taken in this draft, and it's probably going to be a top 15 to top 20 pick as well. 6 catches, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's unguardable at college. Like, you can't put a safety on him. You can't put a linebacker on him. He's going to be a mismatch nightmare as soon as he steps foot, and we're seeing more teams be able to quickly utilize the tight end at the next level. So I do think that he's going to be a guy that teams are finding ways, creative ways to utilize their offensive weapons. Sadiq is going to go somewhere in the top 20 and I think be an integral part of an offense sooner rather than later. So those were the only things that I really wanted to touch base on in terms of the NFL draft report. But I also thought it was a really good time to bring up some more of these names who we've been talking a lot about here in terms of what would make up a round 1 Dynasty Superflex Rookie Mock Draft following the 2026 NFL Draft. And that's kind of what I have here. Now, right off the top, let me say, my philosophy is always a little bit different than maybe other people's out there. Everybody always just wants to push the quarterbacks right to the top. I think in Dynasty leagues, if you don't have the capability to be a top 8 overall, top 10 overall quarterback, a real difference maker in fantasy, I know they have value in Superflex leagues, but I'm not taking the guy who I think is upside is quarterback 14, quarterback 15, quarterback 16. If I think that's their ceiling upside, and they could fall in below that, obviously, I'm not taking them over guys who I think could be top 24 Dynasty wide receivers or top 16 Dynasty running backs. I'm just not, because I do think one of the easiest markets in Dynasty leagues is to trade like a 2nd round pick, early to mid 2nd round rookie pick for like an aging veteran quarterback. And you could just keep doing that. Find the team that's rebuilding and go trade for Matthew Stafford or go trade for somebody like that. And I think I think people are always looking to push the quarterbacks up, but if they don't run and their ceiling is more like somewhere between like Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, somebody like that, is it really worth to take those guys 2nd or 3rd overall over round 1 wide receivers taken in the top 10, 15 picks of round 1? Those receivers going top 10, top 15, they have a real chance of being a top 24 Dynasty wide receiver sooner rather than later. So my philosophy is always not to just automatically. Last year, I had like 4 or 5 players before Cam Ward, just because Cam Ward's not a guy who runs much. There were questions on Dart. Now, in hindsight, Dart would get pushed very high in any redraft Dynasty rookie, rankings from last year. But you look at this quarterback class, and they just don't have that running capability, except for Lennar Sellers, who I didn't put in this, but I will say where I would put him if he ended up declaring, because I do think he's going to go back to school. There's no Lennar Sellers in this, and there's no Arch Manning. I did put the other 3 quarterbacks, though. So that's always been my philosophy. I know they have value. I know all quarterbacks have value. But if their ceiling is a guy who I think is somewhere QB2-ish, whether it's high to mid or their floor could be a low QB2, I'm not going to put them over guys who I think could be top 24 wide receivers, guys who are going to go top 10, top 15 of the NFL draft. I just think that ceiling for those guys is higher, and I can figure out the quarterback position a different way. So this is what my right now round one super flex rookie mock draft for your 2026 Dynasty rookie drafts looks like. And number one, I have running back Jeremiah Love. And number two, I have wide receiver Jordan Tyson. Number three, I have wide receiver Carnell Tate. And number four, I have wide receiver Mekhi Lemon. Number five, I have quarterback Fernando Mendoza. And number six, I have quarterback Dante Moore. At number seven, I have tight end Kenyon Sadiq. At number 8, I have Louisville wide receiver Chris Bell. At number 9, I have Notre Dame's other running back, assuming he declared, Jadarian Price. At number 10, I have wide receiver out of Washington, Denzel Boston. At number 11, I have Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. And number 12, I have wide receiver Casey Concepcion. Those are the guys that make up my top 12 right now. If you were to put Lenoris Sellers into this, I would have him arguably as the 1.02 pick. I would have him only after Jeremiah Love. I'd have him before the trio of wide receivers because Lenoris Sellers, if he was to hit, his upside is somewhere between what we saw at Anthony Richardson's best and Jalen Hurts, right? That big runner, that quarterback with all the athletic traits who can be a big-time runner, who can score a lot of touchdowns, can add a lot to the ground, and push the ball vertically down the field. So that was where I would have Lenoris Sellers. If Arch Manning was to come out, I'd probably put Arch Manning definitely ahead of Mendoza and Moore. Would not have him ahead of Lenoris Sellers if we're assuming Sellers would be also in this draft. But I'd probably have him at number 2 also, and if Sellers was in it, number 3. Because I do think the ceiling of Arch and Sellers, even for Dynasty, would be higher than that of Tyson, Tate, and Mekhi Lemon, even though I am big fans of them. So that's where Arch and Lenoris Sellers would be if I was to include them. Did not include them in this round 1 Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft. So these 12 picks had 2 running backs, Jeremiah Love at 1, Jadarian Price at 9. It had 3 quarterbacks, Fernando Mendoza at 4, Fernando Mendoza at 5, Dante Moore at 6, and Ty Simpson at 11. And then Kenyon Sadiq was the only tight end at number 7. And then the rest were made up of wide receivers. I ended up having Concepcion right at 12, but the just missed. There's a lot of guys in that wide receiver thing that could have been there ahead of Casey Concepcion. My just missed, my round 2 watch list. These are the guys that I think would make up your round 2. It would be wide receivers Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama, wide receiver Zachariah Branch out of Georgia, wide receiver Chris Brazell out of Tennessee, wide receiver Elijah Sarrett out of Indiana, wide receiver Eric Singleton out of Auburn, wide receiver Antonio Williams out of Clemson, Nick Harbor out of South Carolina, and Jacoby Lane out of USC. Those would be the wide receivers that I think would be in the mix to make up a big chunk of round 2. And then I do think we would see some other running backs. And I think the running backs that we would see in round 2 of rookie drafts would be very dependent upon draft capital. I think the names that would be in the mix would be Justice Haynes, Jonah Coleman, Katron Allen, Damon Claiborne, and Nicholas Singleton. Those would be the running backs. I think a few of them would probably sneak into the second round of Dynasty rookie drafts, but I think most of those guys would have day 3 draft capital. I think 1 or 2 could sneak into the top 100, and I think those would be the running backs that would make up that second, a couple of the running backs that would go in round 2 of rookie drafts. And then I already mentioned, I don't think any other quarterbacks would go in round 2. I think the 3 that we talked about. I do think, like I said, 2 of these guys, if Sellers and Arch, I don't think we're going to have 5 quarterbacks, but if they were to declare, it would push a couple guys like Casey Concepcion down. Maybe Ty Simpson at around 1 or Denzel Boston would be the guys that would make up that. So that would be what my round 1 Dynasty Superflex rookie mock draft would look like right now. A bunch of names that I think would make up potentially round 2 of those. And then where Lenoris Sellers and Arch Manning would go if they ended up declaring and being in this upcoming 2026 NFL draft. Let's spin this over to the Sunday game, and let's talk about the NFL rookie report for this past week. Not a lot of things stood out, but a couple things. One, Cam Ward, we are seeing glimpses, bits and pieces of him, of the talent that made him the first overall pick. If we were doing a redraft right now, I do not think Cam Ward would be the first quarterback taken. I think it would definitely be Jackson Dart. I think right now, if you can ask, GMs in the league if they would rather have Jackson Dart or Cam Ward based on what their pre-draft evaluation was, but now what we know right now, I think more people would skew towards Cam Ward. I think more people would skew towards Jackson Dart, but I am not ready. I still think Cam Ward's going to be a very good quarterback when Tennessee gets the situation figured out. But we've seen Jackson Dart in a horrendous situation produce and elevate his team around him. And I think the ability to do that is why I think more people would skew towards Jackson Dart over Cam Ward. This past week, Ward was 28 of 43, 256 yards and 1 touchdown. Tyler Shuck got another start this past week, 30 of 48, 243 yards. I think Tyler Shuck's in a really tough spot because I think the Saints are going to be picking high enough to get a future quarterback, and his opportunity as an early second-round pick is going to be very short-lived. Unless the Saints, end up missing out on a quarterback, and I guess it's possible depending on how many end up declaring, or maybe their regime doesn't really love one of the quarterbacks, that maybe he gets one more year. But I do think he's probably going to get this year, and then they will invest in a quarterback early in the 26 NFL draft, and that'll immediately put that guy at the forefront of, again, the opportunity to be the guy moving forward. This past week, Jackson Dart had to miss another game due to concussion. All signs point to him to be back on the field Monday Night Football, him versus Drake May, Giants versus Patriots. Giants have been putting up a good fight, haven't won many games, but they've been in many games, and I do think it'll be really fun to watch those two quarterback prospects. The Giants were very high on Drake May. They tried everything to get him that year. Elliot Wolf, of the Patriots general manager, would not pull the trigger on a trade, rightfully so, but Joe Schoen and the Giants did very much want Drake May. So it's going to be fun watching Drake May versus who is now their franchise quarterback, Jackson Dart, Monday night next week. At the running back position, Woody Marks this past week, 16 carries, 74 yards against the Bills last Thursday night. Even with Ramondre Stevenson coming back, TreVeyon Henderson got the bulk of the work for the Patriots. Love to see it. 18 carries, 66 yards, but I think the trajectory is definitely up for TreVeyon Henderson. I think Woody Marks is one of those things where I'm not sure we're going to see him get this kind of workload next year. I think Woody Marks, while I like the player, I think it's going to settle in more as a 12 to 13 touch type guy. But I think Henderson could be a guy who's in that 15 to 16 range. And I think that moving forward is his type of projected volume. And I think off of that, he's going to be an RB1 moving forward if he's getting 15 to 16 touches a week, because I think they will be very impactful touches and definitely impactful in terms of the receiving game as well. Ashton Genty this past week, 17 carries, 50 yards, did have 8 catches. It's nice to see them working him into the passing game a little bit. That was one of his strengths early in his collegiate career, but he wasn't asked to do it a lot in his final season in college football. Moving forward, Alvin Kamara of the Saints suffered an injury this past week. Kendra Miller's already out the year. We're going to get a real opportunity to see what Devin Neal could offer. Neal was a guy that I thought he was pretty solid to good at everything, but not a standout trait. But I did like him a lot. He was probably at the back end of my top 10 in my running back rankings, and I did think he had like an early round 4 grade for me. So I'm kind of excited to see him get a little bit of an opportunity here if Alvin Kamara misses some time and Neal is the clear leader in that backfield. If you take this to the pass catchers, let's start with the tight ends. Colston Loveland, the elevation of him. If you go back from like the last 5 weeks or so, Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren basically neck and neck in terms of production. Obviously, Warren started out the year a lot more productive, and Loveland wasn't playing as much. I think both of them are going to be studs. I think right now you can make the case that Warren, I think you got to put Trey McBride and Brock Bowers ahead of Tyler Warren, even though it's like a month ago I said if you wanted to make the case for Warren to be tight end 1 overall, you could. I still believe that, but I would have him at number 3. But I think Loveland's going to be right on his heels sooner rather than later. I think for the next 10 years, we're going to be talking about the Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren. Who's the better prospect? Which one would you have? I still think Colston Loveland's ceiling might be a little bit higher because of the athletic ability, but we've seen what Tyler Warren's done this year. So I would still prefer Tyler Warren, but I am still all in on Colston Loveland being a big time star at the NFL level. And then Gunnar Helm, I've talked about him a couple times now over the last couple weeks, every week, a little bit more. I think he's going to be the Tennessee tight end to own moving forward. He doesn't cost much right now. Chig's still there. They still split a lot of time. I think come next September, week 1, it's going to be Gunnar Helm, the clear starter there. And I think he's going to have the capability to be a guy who produces, low tight end 1 to mid tight end 2 numbers. I think that's his upside. He had a really good productive collegiate career as a receiver. The pre-combine, the pre-draft, in particular, the poor combine testing numbers really hurt his draft stock out of day 2, but he didn't fall as far as people thought. Ended up going early, round 4. I still think there's a real opportunity. He could be a significant fantasy contributor and a long-term starter there for the Titans. At the receiving thing, Jaden Higgins, 4 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. We've seen both of these Texans wide receivers have some productive weeks lately. Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. Both of them have not had these breakout years. I think both of them are going to be guys that you can kind of still be aggressive in trying to trade for because they haven't put out this monster productive year this year. And I do think besides the top of the wide receivers in the 2026 draft, I would prefer guys like Higgins and Jalen Noel over some of the other guys. Next up, Luther Burden finally has seized the role that we've been waiting all year. The shift in the Bears in terms of who they're targeting, it's slowly morphing more towards like Luther Burden, Colston Loveland. I know other people have said it. You fast forward a year from now, if you tell me Luther Burden is the clear number 1 there and Rome Odunze is the number 2, I would not be stunned. I was super aggressive going for Luther Burden in all my rookie drafts last year. I would be super aggressive trying to trade for him this offseason. He didn't put up this gaudy statistical year. Now, maybe he finishes with a couple monster weeks and trading for him becomes impossible. I would almost hope that the rest of the season kind of plays out this past year. 3 catches, 4 catches, 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards. If he concludes the year like that, he is going to be, without a doubt, my number 1 dynasty buy in the entire offseason because I think you'd be able to get him. I don't think he would cost much more than what you picked for, where you drafted him last year in your rookie drafts or where he went last year in rookie drafts. And I think he's going to far exceed that. The only wide receivers that are going to be in the 2026 NFL draft that I would rather have on my dynasty team are the big 3 of Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, and Mekhi Lemon. And truth be told, if you tell me 10 years from now, Luther Burden has a better career than any of those 3 guys, I would 100% think that's a realistic possibility. I think his talent is just as good as those guys. If ever take any concerns about character or anything like that, and just evaluate the football player. So yes, I wouldn't trade a top 3 pick in my 2026 rookie draft for Luther Burden, but I don't think Luther Burden is that far of a prospect behind those guys. I think he's got as much talent. I just don't think you have to spend that. But if you have the 8th pick in round 1, yeah, I would trade that for Luther Burden, hands down. I would want Luther Burden over Chris Bell, over Casey Concepcion, over Jeremy Bernard, over any of the other guys I was talking about. Chris Bell, I like Chris Bell a lot. I'd have Luther Burden ahead of all of those guys. So I would trade the 7th or 8th pick in a rookie draft. And I don't even think it would cost you that if Luther Burden finishes out the year similar to what we've seen. So aggressively go by Luther Burden. Haven't talked about Shamiri Dike. He's slowly morphing into a big-time playmaker. He's their kick returner. He's their punt returner. But now we're seeing playmaking ability as a receiver. Tennessee is in desperate need for playmakers. I don't think DK is going to be a guy you run an offense through, but I think he could be an explosive number 3 wide receiver for the Titans, maybe even a number 2, but an explosive number 3 wide receiver. Get him the ball in a variety of ways. He can stretch the field. You can use him on jet sweeps and the rounds, dynamic returner as well. And then Isaiah Bond, another one of those guys that I think if Cleveland does fix the quarterback situation in the offseason, Isaiah Bond is going to come cheap. And I think that wide receiver room is really up for grabs, that I think Isaiah Bond would be another guy. Offer a 3rd round rookie pick for Isaiah Bond. I think there's a possibility he emerges into their best wide receiver as soon as next year. I'm sure they'll draft someone pretty high, maybe in the first 2 rounds, but I am a believer. Let's not forget that Isaiah Bond was a day 2 type talent who fell leading into the 2026 NFL draft. Let's spin this now to the Dynasty Fantasy Stock Report for this past week. Some stock up, stock down, some buys, guys that I would be looking to sell. A couple guys. Start the wide receiver position. There's a bunch of names here. Right now, buy Christian Watson. We have seen Packers wide receivers. No one has really ever emerged. At times, we thought it was going to be Jaden Reed. Then they drafted Matthew Golden in round 1, and he didn't really explode out. Christian Watson, back from injury, looking really good. He's a guy that even if he leaves Green Bay, he's going to be in high demand. Big, athletic, fast, stretches the field. He's going to be in high demand, whether he's in Green Bay for the long haul or leaves ever in free agency. Christian Watson is a guy who would not cost you a lot right now. I've been talking about him a little bit. I'm going to keep saying buy Christian Watson. Next, George Pickens. If whoever owns George Pickens, now maybe this is a tough week after he just went off, and Thursday slate tomorrow on Thanksgiving, he's priced more than CeeDee Lamb and in Thursday DFS slates. But at some point, I don't think George Pickens is being looked at as high as he should be in dynasty wide receiver rankings. He should be in top 12, top 15s. And if he's not being valued like that by whoever his owner is, I would make an aggressive offer to get George Pickens. I think Dallas is not going to let him walk out. It was a steal of a deal for them. I do not think Jerry Jones is going to let George Pickens leave. If it means franchise tag this year and then contract the year after, I think Pickens is going to end up staying. And I think his ceiling is really high there. And I'm just not sure people have moved things in their rankings enough to have George Pickens as high as he should be. A couple other names, Wan'Dale Robinson, shown more versatility this year. He was really just pigeonholed as a slot wide receiver, but it's clear that he's got more to it. And next year with Malik Neighbors back, he might not look at if he stays with New York, he's a free agent. But if Malik Neighbors comes back, all the attention goes to Malik Neighbors. I think Wan'Dale could be a really good number 2 there. I do think the Giants will probably bring in someone. I don't think it'll be round 1 of the NFL draft. I think that would only be a scenario maybe where round 1's in the mix is if Wan'Dale leaves. If Wan'Dale comes back and they give him a free agent deal, I think we're more talking maybe adding a round 2 wide receiver to that mix. But I think Wan'Dale's a guy that people still want to say, oh, he can only do this. Yeah, he's a limited player in somewhat, but he is a really good route runner. He creates separation. We've seen him take on a much larger role without Neighbors there and show a lot more versatility to his repertoire this year. John Mechie. I love John Mechie coming out of Alabama. He got sick, missed that first year. Never really has gotten going. He's bounced around. He's been traded a lot. He's been traded twice this year, once to the Eagles, then now to the Jets. He's going to get a real opportunity here for the rest of the season with the Jets and then become a free agent. If he performs this past week, 6 catches, 65 yards, if he finishes out the season strong, 1, it's possible the Jets bring him back. 2, another team might look at him and think he could be a solid number 2 or number 3 wide receiver. This is a guy that came in with in the 40s, I'm going to say, somewhere like in that mid-second round range is where he came off the board. He was a really good route runner. He was a focal point of that Alabama pass offense when he was there. I would love to see John Mechie finally become the guy who I thought he could be coming out. And right now he would cost you nothing. He was probably on waiver wires as recently as last week. I just got him off of a waiver wire in a really deep league yesterday. So I think there's opportunity to get John Mechie for really cheap. I would love to stash him and see what happens, see where he goes in free agency moving forward. Parker Washington's another guy who, listen, Brian Thomas, a lot of issues this year. I don't think they're going to give Jacoby Myers a big contract there, especially with Hunter back. If they're not, I don't think they're going to move on from Brian Thomas. I think they could look at Parker Washington and think that he could offer the same that Jacoby Myers can. And he's already here. He knows the offense. So I think Parker Washington's another guy who wouldn't cost you a lot that I'd be willing to buy. Also, Michael Wilson, I know right now might be I wouldn't buy him right now coming off of the last 2 weeks. But if Marvin Harrison comes back, and, we see Michael Wilson's production slow down, these past 2 weeks showed that he's definitely capable of taking on more when their pass offense isn't limited a little bit, which it seems to have been by Kyler Murray. So I think stock definitely up on Michael Wilson. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't know what more there is to say. At this point, I think it's a real conversation of whether him or Jamar Chase should be the overall wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. I think Smith-Njigba clearly now is ahead of Justin Jefferson, is ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Those guys are both great. Obviously, right now, Justin Jefferson's struggling with the situation there a little bit in Minnesota. But I think right now, Smith-Njigba's got to go right almost at the top of the list. Wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 overall in Dynasty. He should be valued at that level. Just wanted to make sure we talked about that. Jameson Williams, stock down right now. I keep wanting to buy Jameson Williams, and I'm kind of every time I'm somewhat relieved that I never have been able to make the buy. He just keeps being very much a roller coaster, and you do wonder if that's just who he's going to be. And I think Xavier Worthy kind of fits in that bucket too. These are 2 guys I'm really intrigued with in these great offenses attached to, Worthy attached to Mahomes. Jameson Williams attached to this great Lions offense. but they might just not live up to guys that can be those top 24 wide receivers. Maybe they're inconsistent wide receiver threes that some weeks will be great, but other weeks not so great. And they kind of check out to be a wide receiver three. So I think stock definitely down a little bit on Jamison Williams in that regard. A couple other stock up on Theo Johnson. I do think he has really played well the last couple of weeks. As hands were an issue earlier in his career, he's really attacking the football a lot. And again, we knew how athletic he was. We're starting to see that athletic package come together. So he's another guy. He won't cost you much. He's looked at as maybe a low tight end 2 in Dynasty right now, but I think he's an interesting guy that's still could see his stock rising. I'd want to buy some of these Giants pieces with what I think will be a better offense next year with a new coach if they make the right hire and Jackson Dart in his second years. And then one guy, I think I've mentioned it a bunch, but I'm going to keep saying it. As much as I like the player, if you can sell high on Chase Brown, Samaje Piran's coming back this week. The last time we saw Samaje Piran with Chase Brown, they were giving Samaje Piran a ton of base work, third down work, up-tempo, 2-minute drill type work. I think they like Chase Brown. I think they know he can't be overworked. I think the Bengals are going to invest, whether it's in a free agent, I don't know, I'm just picking a name, DeAndre Swift, somebody like that if he's available, or a day 2 pick. I think they're going to have a running mate to Chase Brown next year. So I think Chase Brown's dynasty stock when the year started was all based about situation. I still think while I like the player, how high he's valued in fantasy is still because he's the only game in town there, really. But we saw Samaje Perine getting a lot of work. Samaje Perine is a very Jag type talent. If they make an investment over somebody more talented than Samaje Perine, and I think they will, Chase Brown's stock is going to come down a little bit. So while I like the player, I do think if you can get a lot for Chase Brown, selling at his highest point right now, especially with Burrow coming back this week, might be one of the smartest moves you can make. And I'm going to say this, which sounds crazy, but I'm going to buy Kyle Pitts if I can at the end of this year. He's going to leave Atlanta in this offseason. We've seen tight ends hit their stride in their second locations. I think he's got to get out of Atlanta, and I think there's an opportunity for him to rise up and be a better player somewhere else. Maybe not what we once thought he could be, but I think he could be a low tight end 1 and in a better opportunity, still very young. He won't cost a lot. His value is so up and down and inconsistent. I don't think Kyle Pitts has a lot of trade value right now. So I think you could invest in him. I think a team's going to make an investment in him. And you could see, we saw Evan Ingram, I think it was last year, have a great year for Denver. We could see Kyle Pitts go somewhere and put up some tight end 1 years, and he's not costing you. He's not being looked at as a tight end 1 in Dynasty anymore. But I think there still could be some years, even if he might never be what we thought, which was going to be top 2, top 3. We thought he was going to be where Brock Bowers is and Trey McBride is and where we think Tyler Warren's going to be. He's not that. But I still think he could be somewhere between tight end 8 and tight end 14. And that's really valuable. And I think people are so kind of fed up with him because he hasn't lived up to expectations that I think he would cost very little in terms of trade value. So I think he's an interesting dynasty buy as well. So there it is, some dynasty buys, sells, stock up, stock down in terms of the Dynasty Fantasy Report. Went through the NFL Rookie Report and then obviously the NFL Draft Report. Talked about some 2026 NFL prospects. But the big part of that segment was given my first look at a round 1 super flex rookie mock draft and a round 2 watch list for your dynasty rookie drafts. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. If you did, get over to the website, S2S Football, fastest and easiest way to get there. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. On the website, please check out the premium notebook tab. For $9.99, you get access to all of our premium notebooks. It is the best way to support the show. So much updating is going to start going on as we're concluding to the end of the college football season, and then so much in the pre-draft months. You get the 2 notebooks immediately, the rankings notebook, the scouting notebook, and then you get the draft projections notebook in April. You get all of it for $9.99. Best way to support the show. If you bought it in the past, please consider purchasing it again. If you've been a long-time listener but never purchased it, please consider helping us out. Every dollar goes right back into the product. And if you're new to Saturday, Sunday, please consider purchasing it as a way to help us. We want to keep everything else, nothing else behind any paywalls. So we hope that you can consider helping us out by making that $9.99 purchase for all of our content that we offer. So on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nicano, and myself, thank you for joining us. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And I look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.